I know I've been on a Divorce Diaries rant for quite a while now, but I just want to take a break to just remind you about this podcast and how I record it. If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast everywhere. Seriously. On Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Again, that's anchor.fm to get started, or download the Anchor app.
This guy is nuts. Is he really making daily recordings of his possible divorce and releasing it as a podcast? They both cheated on each other? She's making six figures and still doesn't contribute to any joint endeavors financially? Why is she still with him? Why is he still with her? I can't wait for the next episode. This helped me be a better wife. So this is how men think. I hate my husband less now. I understand my wife more now. These are some of the listener comments to the Divorce Diaries podcast. All over the map, I know. These anonymous accounts of events should resonate with anyone that has been married, is married, or is preparing for marriage, and helps couples avoid pitfalls as they might prepare for marriage. Entire seasons are released on Patreon weeks before anywhere else. At Divorce Diaries Podcast Patreon page. Link in description. Now for today's episode.
Today, I just learned, it's today, the 7th of April, Adam Carolla just announced that he was getting a divorce from his wife, Lynette, after 25 years. They have two kids, twins, Sonny and Natalia. I think they are about twins, maybe they're 15, 16. And this is right after Bill and Melinda Gates just she filed for divorce or something like that. Bill may have had someone that was his sorry, I'm detangling my dog from his leash because I'm out walking him now. So Bill and Melinda Gates, they had some agreement or something like that where potentially he was able to see his mistress once a year for a retreat. And she allowed that. Come on, pup, this way with me. So she filed for divorce. I guess maybe that became too much for her, or maybe he finally had enough. Maybe he's like, look, whatever. I don't know. But back to Adam Carolla. He gave a very heartfelt message to catch everyone up, and he did it sort of live on air in true Adam Carolla fashion. You could clearly tell that Bald Brian, Gina Grad, and maybe even Dawson and the rest of the staff, they were all surprised by the announcement that he and Lynette Carolla were going to be getting a divorce. And he spoke to it so eloquently, didn't blame her like I did, and I have been doing in my rage-filled rants. I'm much younger than Adam Carolla. That might be why he had such a measured, I would say measured response. I mean, he had time to think about it, so I don't really know just how measured or not measured Adam Carolla's response actually was or wasn't, but he had time to think about it. He says anyway, obviously, that he was he said, you listen to the clip, they've been separated for some months, and he's like, while it's news to you guys, it's not really news to me, and the papers are being filed and everything like that. So I guess with him being the faithful TMZ watcher that he is, he probably knew that very quickly the word was going to get out, the cat was going to be let out of the bag, and we all know that we don't really want cats let out of the bag. And we don't want things like that outside of our control. Adam Carolla took control of the narrative by letting the world know, his audience know, the people that care about him, fuck it. Fuck those people. Adam Carolla let me know. And I'm recording the Divorce Diaries, a rebooted podcast without all my red pill bullshit rage, where I'm just angry as fuck about what happened in my marriage and not really taking full accountability for the things that happened with my wife and I. Not because I am solely responsible, but because I can't take accountability for things that might not be my responsibility. But I can take accountability for it all. Because gender bullshit be damned. That's a part of manning up, and that's a part of maturation and maturing. And I wasn't mature enough throughout my marriage to just make sure that, we were in the best place that we could possibly be together. I was not mature enough. Hence, all of my fucking ranting in those first, I don't know how many episodes of the Divorce Diaries podcast that are no longer public. I mean, if they're anywhere, I'll put them on Patreon because I feel like they were just... If you want to see what my anger looked like, if you want to see what I said, if you hear what I said, if you want to maybe hear someone else say some of the things that you might be saying right now, if you're also a shitbag father, if you're a young father, if you're a person that doesn't have perspective on your marriage and you want to hear someone that is just hurt and crying out and just, I listen to those things and I hear desperation. I hear pain. I feel frustration is probably the most principal, frustration and confusion, because when you're confused, you get really, really frustrated. When you're angry and confused, it's like that's just gasoline on that fire. You are just out of sorts. That's all I'll say. And that's what I was. And to hear a much older Adam Carolla, but just hearing an older Adam Carolla, he's got way more money than I could ever dream to have. Maybe one day for me. But just hearing him say that we were just two people with two totally different moral sets, perspectives, ideals, and ways of living. I've gravitated to Adam Carolla for I don't know how many years now. I've religiously listened to his podcast. Religiously, like the people that meditate for, every day, and they're like, oh, I've been meditating every day for the last 22 years or something, or I don't know how long I've been listening to the Adam Carolla podcast. I just don't know. And he's been a part of my life. He's been part of my lexicon because I believe Adam Carolla and I are very simpatico. We're equally yoked. And he put it into better words. I didn't really know why. I could say it in lots of interesting ways. Adam Carolla and I, he likes to talk, I like to talk. He likes to talk, I like to talk. He likes cars, I like cars. He's got kids, I've got kids. He's frustrated with the world around him, I'm frustrated with the world around him. He's frustrated with the world around him, I'm frustrated with the world around me. All of these things are traits that Adam Carolla and I share. Sorry, wrestling with a dog if I'm breaking up in my speech. He thinks most people around him are stupid. He understands the plight with humanity, and he's very frustrated by it. And he laments often. He laments over and over what he's frustrated with, how the world could be better, the fact that people could just make a pivot and make a change, and if they were committed, and the fact that people are weak more than they are stupid. Adam Carolla is he's literally a philosopher that has not gone to school. It's what he is. And that's why I've gravitated toward him. And the words that he used about himself, he said, I'm very deliberate in everything that I do. And I've heard a couple of clips, and I've tried to listen to his current right now. Anyway, she's still his wife, Lynette Carolla. I've listened to the podcast, and I consider my marriage and the problems that problem is probably like not the best word to use, but the differences amongst me and my wife. I said to my wife maybe 2 years ago, I said, I think Adam Carolla and his wife have a lot of the same issues that we have. There are all of these things that might happen. Let me try to think of something. Like in the course of a day. Trying to think back to something that my wife and I just had a difference of opinion on. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a little bit of a blank. Okay. We are about to move right now. And for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, my wife's been on everyone. We've got to move. And she's been on me hard about, we've got to find the new place. We don't have a place to live. And just obsessing, just going nuts. And she's like, because we don't have a place to live. When we settle on the house, we won't have anywhere to go. And I'm like, okay, well, when I look here, it looks like, you go on Zillow. I'm like, there are plenty of places to rent. And, okay, do you want a 3-bedroom? You want a 2? Like, I don't know. And she's just going nuts and flustered. She's just flustered. And I'm like, but there's a lot here. All we have to do is pick one. Well, I don't know. And what I ended up having to do was I had to sort through her frustration with the fact that we didn't have a place. And I'm like, do you want me to just drop everything? Because I'm doing all the blocking and tackling, trying to sell the place. And, all of the things she's accumulated over the years in the house and hasn't taken care of. I've said, like, can you please, like, Goodwill this? Like, you haven't touched it in 4 years. Can we get rid of it? I don't want to, because one day I could maybe use it for this one thing that I might do one time. And that's usually what it is. And I'm like, we haven't used it in 5 years. Can we get rid of it? And if you really want it again, we can get it again. Like, if you really want it, you've got like 20 projects here that haven't even had the packing tape removed from the box. So is it okay if I could try to sell it? I mean, could we? No, I don't want to. And she always resents me even asking. So even though we need it, it needs to happen so that we can have a more comfortable life. We can move through our home without stepping around things or something like that. She still wants to keep things. That's still just her way of being. She just wants to keep things. I'm like, okay, that is a moral difference between my wife and I. It's just, I'm like, can we let's get rid of things we don't use. She wants to keep things in perpetuity. If you ask her, hey, do you want to keep things forever that you don't use? She'll always say, no, of course not. What am I, crazy? But in practice, you can look and you can see, wow, you kept this. You haven't touched this in 5 years. You haven't touched this in 7 years. You haven't touched this in 10 years. Can we get rid of it? No, because it's still good. And it's still, so it's like I look at the world where we should maybe get rid of or find a good home for the things that we don't use, proving that we don't need them. And her lexicon is we should keep those things. And that's just one small example. And with some of the examples that Adam Carolla has used over the years with his wife, Lynette, I just have always felt that same sort of divergence in perspective shared with them. And I think it can be a good thing, and it's a really healthy thing sometimes. Like, my wife is very quick to make a decision. She does not suffer with analysis paralysis like I do. She can pull the trigger on something that we should do or a place that we should go without an issue. And things sort of work themselves out. And I think it's like one of the best tools possible for where you're going to pick to go on vacation. Not necessarily where you're going to pick to stay, but where you're going to pick to go on vacation. Like, oh, should we go to, I don't know, should we go to Wichita, Kansas or Oklahoma City? And she's just like, Wichita, Kansas, it's going to be raining. It's more rainy during this time of year. So Oklahoma City, done. And it's like, wait, okay, well, and then me, this is where I'm really bad. I'll say, well, Wichita is like, it's cheaper to go there. And they've got this little river walk thing in Oklahoma City. They don't have that. And it's a little more expensive, and it's a little harder to get around. But Oklahoma City has a better public transportation system and an Uber network. Whereas Wichita, it's a little bit more sparse. So, I mean, I would just do it. Week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks may go by, and then we missed the window to get a good deal that we could have gotten in Oklahoma City, where she said we should go to begin with. And now I'm paying more in Oklahoma City because it's the better destination, and I've been stressed the whole time, and I'm doing this because I'm trying to make the right decision to make it perfect. Where she's like, look, it's good enough. And that's where I've been, just a really shitty husband over the years. And that's where our divergence in moral set and perspective, that's when that looks horrible from my side and really causes us problems. Now, if we're going to figure out, like, are we going to be shrewd investors, and if we're going to build a business, my wife's talent and habit for pulling the trigger really fast, that might hurt us at times. Or I'm using a computer for audio editing and maybe video editing. You're listening to me with this podcast, so I got other things that I'm doing. And with her not necessarily looking at the details, she usually inevitably picks the computer that doesn't have the adequate storage or RAM or something like that. And my poring over the details and the tech specs, where those types of details that cause her such pain and frustration, she may not. We're like oil and water in those respects. And if there's in that decision, if there's a price limitation, she's like, look, all I know is I need a Mac. I need a Mac computer because I hate PC. And I only have $1,000 to spend. I'll say, oh, you only have $1,000 to spend? Okay, well, what do you want? Do you want this thing to be portable, or do you want it to just stay in one spot? I don't know, because it's a detail that she doesn't really concern herself with, but it's a very important detail for me, because whether I'll recommend a MacBook Pro, a MacBook Air, or a Mac Mini will influence those decisions. So with my wife not knowing or making it seem like she doesn't really care about being mobile or not, well, I would recommend the $700, whatever, Mac Mini, no problem, because that will do the things that she wants to do. Whereas that'll recommend the things that she wants to do. I mean, that'll get the things done that she wants to do. But if she says, no, I want to be able to take my computer to coffee shops, then I'll say, ooh, $1,000 is your budget? It looks like the MacBook Air is probably going to be the thing that we get. What do you want to do on it? Well, I'm going to be able to do anything. I'm like, okay, anything? Well, be really specific, because if you want to be able to do anything, that could take that from a MacBook Air to a MacBook Pro, and the MacBook Air is like $800 or $900, and the MacBook Pro is like $1,300 or $1,200. She's like, well, my budget is only $1,000. Okay, so again, that puts us at a MacBook Air, the entry level, or a Mac Mini, and you'll be able to upgrade it if you want, all the way up to $1,000. Well, why would I need to upgrade it? Because you said you wanted to do everything. I mean, are you saying you want to edit video? Well, I want to be able to. She'll just say it just so cavalier. Well, I want to be able to. And I'm like, okay, but with you having a budget limitation and a budget constraint, I really need to help you. You really need to help me understand exactly what you want to do, so that I can get you under your budget, but hopefully with a computer that has exactly what you're going to need. And then she gets frustrated because I'm asking all of these detailed questions. I'm starting to get frustrated because I feel like she's not willing to put put in the legwork to answer these questions because she came to me asking me for help anyway. Or worse, I was the shitbag version of myself and I offered advice without it being asked of me. And that made our marriage communication tense because I thought that she was talking to me about computer and tech stuff because she knows I know a lot about computer and tech stuff. So I was going to try to help her solve the problem. But then I tried solving her problem, so that might have made her feel like I didn't think she knew what she was doing, or she felt disrespected, or she had to defend her position because she didn't ask for anything. She just wanted to know she just wanted to tell me what was going on. And those are things that a lot of times I didn't really realize because I didn't really listen and I didn't really pay attention. So I didn't really know what my wife wanted, and I didn't really know how to give it to her. Or I was always looking to give her something, or I was always looking to solve a problem for her. Because let's face it, in my perspective, it's like my wife walks around and she has all of these problems surrounding her and affecting her life. And with her having all these problems, I'm just like, oh, that's my baby. I don't want her having these problems. I'm going to help you solve them. Oh, you say you need a computer? Here, buy this one. And then it's like, I didn't ask you which computer I should buy. Or she buys a different one. And I'm like, I thought I told you to buy that one. Well, I never said that I was going to buy the computer that you told me to. And then I'm like, well, why'd you ask me? What do you mean, why did I ask you? I didn't ask you. I just talked to you about it, and you told me which one I should buy, so you were trying to tell me what to do. And I'm like, I wasn't trying to tell you what to do. And no one's listening to each other. No one's really understanding each other. But I've been married long enough to know that's not my wife's fault. That's my fault. I can only be responsible and accountable for me, and I need to listen and wait for my wife to ask me a question. I don't need to go into solve her problem mode because whether she has this problem or she doesn't have this problem, she's going to have it whether I say anything or not. So if she wants to know, she'll ask. And with Adam Carolla and his wife, I noticed in some of the more public things that he would say about the conversations they would have and disagreements they would have, quote unquote disagreements, I'm like, oh man, been there. And the worst part about that is I may have said some things at times like, yeah, that's how women are. Oh man, Adam's going through the same problem. Oh, this other guy that I'm talking to, yeah, he's going through the same problem. Geez, we all are suffering through the same shit with our women. That was my stance and my perspective before. Now I look at it like, we all are stepping on the same landmine that we throw in front of our own foot. Yeah. Could I just take the position, oh, my wife this, my wife that? Could Adam? Yeah. Every husband could do that. And like I said, my red pill rage-filled rants were crazy before. But now, sorry, I don't know where I left off. Just got a phone call. But the funny part is you could just blame yourself and go nuts. I'm sorry, you could blame your wife if you're a man and go nuts. Their fault. But no, it was my fault. I needed to understand how she communicated, like with this whole moving thing. She's just like, I don't know, and we don't have a place to go. All I should have heard in her voice was she's scared. She feels like she doesn't have security. She doesn't feel that she has a place to live, which would make her feel comfortable, and she's just really, really uncomfortable. So if you want this to end, you've got to help her be comfortable. And that might require you stopping what you're doing and giving her or giving this thing your undivided effort and attention, and that will be what makes her feel better. And that's what I did. I did it much later than she would have probably liked. But she also wasn't able to articulate to me, I really want this to happen. I really need this to happen. Can you please stop doing what you're doing? It would be great in a perfect world if my wife said that. She's like, hey, I'm really feeling apprehensive about us not having a place. I feel like that should be our topmost priority, us finding a new place to live. Could you take the time to stop what you're doing and ensure that we have a place secured over the next 2 days? Then I would say, oh, okay, sure. Let me do that. And then I could maybe even respond with something like, hey, well, I'll do that. I'll start at 6 o'clock tonight, and we'll line some places up for us to visit tomorrow morning, and you and I will do this and we'll do that. X's and O's. We'll figure that out. And then she would have said, okay, she would have had an expectation. There would be less uncertainty, and she would be pretty clear about where we were going, what we were doing, when we do it, and how we were going to search. And she would feel like I was looking too, and I was taking it, quote unquote, as serious as she was. And that would have brought us closer. And it did bring us closer. She was over the moon afterwards. She was just happy. And I remember myself in the past just being so frustrated that my wife would not just communicate clearly. Why can't you just tell me what you want? If you just tell me what you want, I could do it. If you tell me that it was bothering you, if you just say that you feel like I'm not involved, if you would just say that, then I would know and understand what you're thinking, what you're feeling. If you would just say. And that was the hill that I used to die on all the time. Her fault. She's a bad communicator. She just won't talk. No, I've been with this woman long enough, and I am not paying attention the way that I ought to. She needs certain things done a certain way, just like I need things done a certain way. We're in a rough marriage. Like, a lot of men find themselves in marriages that do not have the intimacy that they are looking for. If you were to put a bunch of women in a room, which people have done this before, do you understand that your husband is a sexual creature? Do you understand that your husband wants to be intimate with you? Women would say yes. Do you understand that your husband probably wants it way more than you do? Yes. When's the last time you guys have done? Well, it's been months. How do you think your husband feels about that? Oh, does he just expect me to just be his concubine? Am I just there for him and just his needs? Whoa. We kind of went kind of far. And hearing men talk about it, especially when a man knows that his wife is aware that he wants to be intimate with her, yet they aren't, that is going to erode their relationship. It's going to really frustrate him, and then no telling what he might do. It doesn't, quote unquote, excuse it, cheating. It doesn't make anything right. But if a man were to constantly not give his wife things that she needed, and she found the security that she felt in the arms of another man, people oftentimes applaud her. Yes, you did it, and your husband shouldn't have done what he did. And I'm not saying that that is right, and I'm not saying that it would be right on the man's side. All I'm saying is when I took the time to consider my wife in full empathy and what she wanted, I have to say she is not the best communicator. She may not be able to tell me clearly what she wants so that I can take action in a great way for her. I need to know that's what I'm dealing with going in. So in a way, I always need to be open, more empathetic, more patient, ask questions that aren't accusatory, that make her feel angry, but ask questions that are truly questions to try to get us to a place where we can solve this issue that we're having, if we're having any issue of any kind. That's what I want to do. So that's my accountability, and that's where I wasn't a great husband. I don't know if Adam Carolla may have that same thing. I don't know if that's his thing, if that's what he could say. All I know is that's been my problem, and that's me taking full accountability for my shit. And I'm sorry to hear that Adam and Lynette are getting a divorce, but hearing him say why they're getting a divorce and that they're just two different people with two different sets of sort of ideals and ways of living, it's like I don't want to keep singing his praises and talk about just how similar my perspective is with his, but honestly, that's exactly how I feel in my marriage. We're just different. We're just different. We're different in how we save and use our money as a resource, how we use our time as resources. He said he's very deliberate with what he does. Like, oh, I'm going to get up today and I'm going to do this thing. And he would feel empty, unfulfilled, disappointed in himself if he didn't skin that cat the way that he said he wanted to skin it. He'd feel really crappy. That's how I am. My wife, on the other hand, can get up, possibly set a goal that she set 28 times in the past, does not achieve that goal, and sleep totally sound. And I'm the one that's up obsessing about a goal that she set for herself that she's violated or something. And then I'm making our marriage worse by bringing it up. It's, and he said they're divorcing after 25 years of marriage, and I'm getting close to that myself. And it's funny, just once you realize how hard that concrete has become, it's no longer wet, it's no longer malleable. You can no longer insert anything into that concrete, and hopefully the concrete sets, or that foundation sets around that rebar that you put in there. Once the concrete's hard, you try to put rebar in it, you're just laying it on top. You need a jackhammer now to break up the concrete. You got to break it up so you can get rebar in there. But rebar only is good in wet concrete because it hardens and makes the concrete harder to break. So once you break it, the whole thing has to come out, AKA you got a divorce. And it's unfortunate because there are kids involved in his situation, there are kids involved in mine. But at least I'm not doing the whole blame crap that I was doing before. Because this is my divorce diary, and I'm still going to record it. We've got a lot of problems in marriage, and I think most problems in life are because of someone or both sides having a weak, bad, poor, half-baked, misconfigured perspective. And I think that with just some minor tweaking to our perspectives, we could have small but meaningful paradigm shifts that make us better versions of ourselves to our spouses, honestly.
Wow, that was the Divorce Diaries podcast. The Daily Saga will continue tomorrow. The full season's episodes are on Patreon now. Subscribe for early access. Click the Patreon link in the description. Hopefully these entries help our anonymous recorder as a form of his own personal therapy. That's his hope and his intention. Will these recordings of life's curveballs lead this family to the best resolution in the end? We'll keep listening. New episodes are released daily on all podcast players, but all episodes are available on Patreon at Divorce Diaries Podcast Patreon page. Until next time.